Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. P-E-R-F-E-C-T. Perfect. Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.
Hi, everybody. I'm Liam. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm here with the fantastic DW.
What's good, beautiful people? I'm DW. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And Liam and I, we've been kicking it since elementary school. And you are listening. You ready, Liam? Here it goes.
I'm ready.
To What's Perfect Really podcast.
Good job.
And the crowd goes wild.
I should edit my script here. On the podcast, we talk about transformative moments in music and the impact that those transformative moments had on the culture around us and on our lives specifically, and the world, of course.
And our mission is to bring light to the perfect moments in music we think deserve a little more appreciation. And today, me, DW, I'm going to be talking about Big Sean's single, Living Single. And I'm going to make a case as to why this is the perfect moment in music for me. So let's get into it.
Okay. I like the song also. I highly agreed with this upcoming selection.
So I have a couple things, but let's talk about what the song is about. So for me, the song is about you living this single life, right? So it's derived from the show Living Single. It's inspired by the show Living Single, which is one of my favorite shows. And it's about just living this single life and wanting to discover love in these many different ways and the different interactions you have in your kind of path to discovering what love and relationship could be like, but mostly focused on this is what it's like to be single, and then kind of reflecting on, I wonder what it could be like to be in this relationship. So I think it's like this quintessential thing. You're dating maybe in your 20s, you're working your jobs, you're doing your thing, trying to build your career, and you're, having these moments, these infamous moments with people. And basically Big Sean is writing them down. And it's really relatable to kind of see the different perspectives that Big Sean brings to the song.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the contrasting the pros and cons of both choices. Living single and how that proceeds through time, along with being in a committed relationship and how that proceeds through time.
Before we get into it, though, since the last time we saw each other, what has been, let's say, a perfect moment for you this past week?
Mine's pretty simple. I got this water bottle that's amazing. I don't know how other people are, like if you research on the internet, but like water bottles are too big, too small, the whole Goldilocks syndrome. And I got this water bottle. This is not like a paid advertisement. I wish it was, but it is not. And it's fucking the best water bottle I've ever had in my life. So,
is that the same bottle that I saw before I left?
No, because that one was stolen by my significant other, and I was not getting it back. So I had to go buy another one. That's how much I liked it. So.
Oh wow! So it was the same one, but you bought two.
Yeah, I bought a different color though, so we can distinguish. So there can
What makes it outstanding? What makes it perfect?
So it's the right size. I don't know your experience with water bottles. Like you can get a small one and it's like, well, that's not enough. It goes out too much. And then there's a lot of these ones that I see people walking around with, which are like gallons of water. And that's not convenient, in my opinion, to carry around. None of that. And then there's the whole phenomenon where like I like to have a water bottle with me when I go to bed. And like the mechanics of drinking while you're laying down are never easy. So this handles that perfectly. And it doesn't spill. It doesn't, none of that. So
is there a straw or something that's connected
there's a straw?
To it?
Yeah, there's a straw, but you bite into it. So it only like dispenses liquid when you approve of such a thing to go on.
Wow, that's fancy. Is it glass or something like that? Like
no,
BPA free kind of
thing? It is that. Yeah, it comes with the whole like thing on the label that it's like non-toxic or, yeah, it's called Camelback. I recommend. Maybe we'll put it in our description.
This is going to decide. This is like the defining moment if it's really perfect.
Yeah.
Does it fit into every cup holder in your car?
It does. Yep. A+.
Okay. Then I agree. This water bottle is a good fit for you.
I'm glad. No, but it's like if you have the right water bottle, you will live a healthier lifestyle because you would just by nature drink more water. And like that is probably the healthiest thing you can do for yourself.
Liam out here making healthy decisions, y'all.
Yes.
It's all dependent on the water bottle. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you, B.
Thank you. How about you? What was your perfect moment this week?
Let's see. I think the perfect moment for me this week was actually realizing that I appreciate this podcast.
Oh.
I was sitting and I was thinking to myself, you know, you do podcasts, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this because now I'm in a space where everybody can hear me, and I don't know what my thoughts mean, and you know, if they're super controversial. And I was feeling all self-conscious, and I was like, oh, but you know, I get to be out here every day we record, and I get to spend time with the person that sometimes we don't get to spend time because our schedules have been so all over the place over the years that we don't really get to spend time with each other. But I'm realizing every week we sit down and we get to have intentional time with each other. And so I think me realizing how perfect that is for me in this time in my life right now is really, really dope.
Appreciate that. I feel the feeling is mutual.
Dope. And I think our relationship, personally, I'm like, oh, our relationship is grown so much just in the conversations, for me at least. Like, oh shit, I never knew that.
Yeah, I would agree. Because I think our friendship doesn't really tread on like, I don't know, I can't describe it, but this podcast does capture the nature of how our conversations typically go, which come across, I think, very surface level. But there's depth to it that's not easy to see quickly in passing.
That's true. I was having this conversation with my significant other too, and they're like, Liam is a really great friend. That is not at all how my significant other sounds, but more like Liam is a homie.
Yeah.
Liam is a great homie. Y'all have had some ups and downs, and y'all really show up for each other. You know, that's great. Yeah. So both impersonations were not
good.
Not top notch. Yeah. But anyway, so yes, Big Sean. All right, let me tell you. So this song, Living Single, was released in 2016, and it features Chance the Rapper and Jeremiah. But this song got leaked. And originally when it got leaked, it had Smino on it.
Smino?
Right. Okay.
Who
so
is that?
Here's a quick story of how I know Smino. This is my first introduction to Smino.
You know Smino?
Look,
wow. Stop
sleeping on me. But I'm going to tell you why. I think it was a BET cypher, and it was Smino, Tierra Whack. Who is it? Oh, really, really dope MC. Closed it out and was speaking Spanish and everything. Oh gosh, why can't I remember your name? Oh, but they're so dope. They were on that show, the MC show, and they came through from the show. You know what I'm talking about? With Cardi B and Chance the Rapper and T.I.
I vaguely remember this being a show. Yeah.
Okay, so it was a show on Netflix. Oh, what is your name? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so upset if I don't get this person's name. D Smoke.
D Smoke
is out of this world. So this cipher, I'm like, yo, this is about to be. And there was another person in cipher, but I can't remember the name. And it doesn't mean that you're not out of this world. I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But this is what I remember about Smino. I was like, oh, I've never seen Smino rap, or like I've never experienced Smino rapping before. But I clicked on it because it had Tierra Whack and D Smoke. Then Smino, I think, does Tierra Whack goes second and Smino goes third. And in Smino's freestyle, or whatever verse that Smino's kicking, Smino's like says some line. It's like whack like Tierra.
Oh,
right. So okay, see how you did that, right? Your face is like, ooh, what's that? So right in this thing, like Tierra Whack does the verse. Tierra Whack is like fucking phenomenal, like just out of this world. And Tierra goes, and Smino goes, and then Tierra's bopping. And then Smino says whack like Tierra, and then Tierra's whole vibe stops.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can see it. And I tried, Liam, so many different ways to be like, okay, I know it's a play on words, Smino, but there's no way that whack like Tierra is like makes it make sense.
Nah.
Because it could be like whack like Tierra because Tierra's last name is Whack.
No.
but like in the way that you were sequencing it,
Nah, that's not good.
it means you're whack like Tierra. So you're saying Tierra whack is whack. But then what's funny, but that's how I took it. You know, Smino could have meant all these different things, but that's how it landed. And so my connection to this, right? So Tierra whack stops, just stops.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can see Tierra's just bopping in the back and all of a sudden stops and it's like, yo, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
This is my interpretation. And then like a couple weeks later, I see a sweater that Tierra Whack's promoting that says whack is not whack.
Good.
Yo, I was like, so clearly I read that.
Oh, totally.
So
yeah,
I was just like connecting pieces. So this is my introduction to Smino, and I love Tierra Whack. So I was like, automatically, I don't know, Smino. That's not a good look. It's in the middle of a cipher. This is a really dope MC, and whatever your freestyle was or whatever it was that you're doing, I can't fuck with this one right here. So, but it doesn't mean I don't give second chances. But that was like my introduction.
But you can't redo a first impression. Smino.
Right.
Come on, man.
So then when I heard Smino was originally on the Big Sean cut, I was like, automatically, I was like, okay, what's this going to be about? Because I had the impression from the cipher. And you know how I'm judgmental and stuff. And so I was like, okay, let me give it a chance or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but I love this Big Sean song. And what I love about it is because, let me just go into it. I feel it's really well versed. I specifically love the last verse. And maybe I love the last verse so much is because the way the build goes. And I'm thinking to myself like, oh, I love it so much because the way that it's built up. So then I realized like, oh, I kind of like this whole song. Mm-hmm. Well, really, I really like Big Sean's verses on this song. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I went back to listen to the release version with Smino on it, and Smino's doing some like really dope lyrically stuff, has really great sounds, really great approaches, but the storyline doesn't connect with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, nah, I'm not connecting with this storyline. So that's Smino on that version is Smino, Big Sean.
Yeah. And you have to seek out the Smino version. So for anybody listening, like if you just go to listen to Big Sean Living Single, you're going to hear the correct version that we're talking about. But if you dig deeper, there is a Smino version that you can also find. But
yeah, and I found this one on YouTube, and you have to type in Smino to get it, right? So apparently it was dropped, and then it was not dropped, but it was released basically without Big Sean's consent. But then Big Sean wound up just dropping Living Single as a single in general. And on this single, the one that I'm referring to, it has Big Sean, Jeremiah doing the chorus, and
he kills it. I think he does a fantastic chorus.
And Chance the Rapper on it. So I think like for me, when I listen to this version, I'm like, this is absolutely the best. And I remember I was in a car and I was just playing it, and it randomly came up on a list that I had, because you know sometimes you go through your playlist and then something random comes.
Yep.
And this song came on, and I'm like, wait, hold on a second. And I was just, you know, going through watching Living Single, because I think it had dropped on Hulu. So I didn't hear the song in 2016 or 2017. Is it
like a reboot of Living Single, or like the actual show?
No. Oh my gosh. If there's a reboot of Living Single, I want to be casted. Cast me. Cast me. I definitely I couldn't be Maxine Shaw, attorney at law. Thorough, but I could definitely be somebody on there. Right. So Queen Latifah, that's what I'm saying. This is the one right here for me. All right. I'll be the bodega corner store person. You know what I mean? I don't got to be main character. So I was watching Living Single, I think at the time too. And then I heard the song and I'm like, yo, wait, is this connected as I think it is? It was, and it made it even better. So that was my introduction to the song. So I'm listening to it, and I want to go to the last verse, but I want to give you space.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I also love this song a lot, and if DW didn't pick it, I would have picked it. I think we agree. Big Sean, the content in his verses, which is the first and last verse, are what make the song so dope. Jeremiah does an amazing chorus. It's really dope. It's kind of like this smooth, mellow 90s vibe beat. You can just ride around to it. You can listen to it on repeat. It like literally never gets old. Chance the Rapper's on it too. I think Chance does all the stuff that makes him unique, and like I can respect all that, but like the song is really about Big Sean's verses.
Oh
And,
yeah.
yeah. And even when you go into like the YouTube comments, like you see people like pointing that out over and over and over again, along with the beat itself. I remember hearing a song the same way you did, where it's like it pops up randomly on Spotify, like the algorithm just like puts it to you. And at first I was like, oh, the beat's pretty dope. Listen to it. Is this like a 90s song that I just never heard? And then like as you keep listening, oh, this is Big Sean. And okay, it's a newer song that's vibing on one of the older beats. And 2016, I was definitely in a living single part of my life. And
hold on, can I pause you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I pause you real quick? You said 90s beat. I'm gonna bring you back to the living single part of your life because I want to hear that. But 90s beat, why did you think it was in the 90s? Like, what was it about the beat?
So it sounds a lot like there's a Tupac song. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but the drum beat is there. It's kind of this ambient bass line that's driving. There's kind of this like distant vocal thing going on. And then it's got this like keys, like almost like a little bit neo soul type of thing happening. And especially drums. Drums are what are going to kind of, in hip hop, in my opinion, drums dictate really more than anything, like the time frame that beat is trying to either come from legitimately or emulate. So the drums on this are very 90s. 90s, early 2000s kind of vibe. Did you get that impression, or did you not feel like that when you heard it?
No, I felt like it sounded like to me, you know, when Summertime came out, summertime. Now when that came out and you're just kind of cruising, Rakim wrote that. But Will Smith raps it. What is Here It Is, it grew slightly transformed. That's the one, right?
Yeah.
That's the song, right? So I get that vibe when it's like crazy world, because it's also from the theme of Living Single. And I was like, wait, hold on. And it's thank God I'm with my girl, right? So they just shifted a little bit. I just love how they shifted the chorus a little bit. I was like, oh wait, this sounds like the theme song to Living Single. Like there's some nuances that are the same. Like there's some moments that they hit the notes and it's similar, but it's very different. And so that's what initially attracted me to the song. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this, because if Big Sean is inspired by Living Single, which is one of my favorite sitcoms, then I mean, this person must be cool by association. They must be cool. But let's bring it back to the 2016. You was talking about dating scene. You're dating?
Yeah, I was like, oh geez, I mean, don't quote me on the exact year. I don't want to get myself in trouble with some like old history, but I just mean that was like in and around the time of my life where I was experiencing the living single. And I just remember the song comes on and like, you listen to rap music, like 90% of rap music, as a listener, you're just on cruise control because it's like about how cool the artist is and they're at the club and like they hate everybody, but they're the best. And so that's what I'm expecting to hear. And then as the song continues, it just slowly sets in that I'm like, yo, he is talking about what life is like for me right now, and not in a good way. It doesn't make me feel good. A lot of the other rap music I would listen to would make me feel good about my living single life. Like, wow, Liam, you're doing a good job. All these rappers approve of this lifestyle. And then Big Sean kind of like made gravity set in. And I was like, oh shit. But the song is amazing, and I really like it. And I think it does capture like the good and bad of the single part and the committed relationship part. I can elaborate as we continue to talk, but that was kind of my experience when I first heard it.
Yeah, no, I was in reflection mode. I think I was listening to my partner too. I've been in a relationship since 2011. So I can't, like, the single life fades. I can't really remember. I mean, I do remember, but it's almost like I don't know how much is worth remembering. You know what I mean? But this verse, for a moment, it took me there. And I wanted to like specifically, okay, so I was going to focus on the last verse, but I just realized Big Sean, we're only going to focus on Big Sean's verses because I love everybody else on, but Big Sean, this is, you really do it here. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna listen to this again after.
Yeah, Big Sean has something to say in the song. Like the other guys are rapping, singing. Like Big Sean was like, no, I have to get something off my chest that's important.
Yes. But also the thing about Big Sean is what I think I've noticed about Big Sean, and you could let me know if this is something that popped up for you, is this person seems like a serial relationship, like a serial monogamous. Yeah. Right. Someone who really values being in relationships, is a very caring person and like wants to be in companionship. That's how they see their life. I get this from them because I mean, I've noticed, I think they've been in a couple high profile relationships.
Yep.
Right. And the most recent one is with Janae Aiko. And I think they're still together. Like they broke up and now they're together again. And Big Sean just strikes me as the music that I've heard, the songs that I've heard, they're about like some of the songs I've only heard a few of the songs, but the ones that I have heard about being heartbreak and like, what is it? I don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
the
I
other
don't
song
fuck
is
with you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's like literally about someone, don't call me because I don't fuck with you, you know?
Yeah.
There's a whole song about that. But just like I get this vibe that Big Sean is deeply affected. They have a big heart. Big Sean has a big heart and is deeply affected by the relationship status. And but I don't know how you feel. How do you feel? Do you get that vibe?
Yeah. So Big Sean definitely watches those Netflix teenage rom-coms like the whole way through, even when he's by himself. Like I get that feeling. But yeah, I think Big Sean, I think one thing that appeals to everybody, at least me, about Big Sean is he seems like a normal person that has a very good ability at rapping. And he's not trying to portray a whole image necessarily. I'm sure he does at certain points in some of his music, but there's always these refreshing moments that come out that are just very like emotional outbursts. And this is one that I don't fuck with you. I think we've all felt like we're over something.
Yeah. And then this artist gets to, the thing about artists, you get to say some things out loud if this is your medium. So Big Sean, it creates music. So be able to say, don't fucking call me. You know what I mean? Like you get to have that expression when you talk about 808s and heartbreaks, or, that whole album being about a breakup, right? Which is kind of whack because sometimes it's only the artist that gets to express their side. The other person never gets to say anything. Yeah. But then everybody's like, I'm coming for you. Ah! You know what I mean? And it's like, come on, man. This is ridiculous.
Do you feel when you listen to this song, did it strike like a genuine chord when you reflected back to your living single days? Or were you like, oh, this isn't how I perceived mine to go? Because for me, it like struck home. Like it was like, that describes how I felt.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with yes. It definitely was on the heartstrings. And I'm looking at a couple of different lines. And one of the lines, I also think Big Sean is pretty funny. When we talked about comedy, having comedy and throughout your lyrics, I really appreciate when people can string those things in there. And I see a lot of comedy in here. And it says, one of the verses is like, look, I know what it feel like to think you found the one. Told mom that so many times it sounds, I'm sounding dumb.
Yeah.
Cause she started to mix up Ashley with Tanisha and saying, hi, Brittany, when I'm on the phone with Lisa. Yo. No. It's like, can you imagine your mom coming to the phone? I was like, hey, Brittany. And like so excited about the person you used to talk to. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like having that moment, like, no, this is not Brittany, and
have you ever done this? So I can't relate to the mom part, but like the feeling that he's describing, I can relate to, where you send a text to the wrong person that isn't necessarily wild, jump out the window text, but it's like the context of it is very clear that it was the wrong person it was sent to. The whole like, was that Ashley or Tanisha? Oh, geez, which one did I send that text to? And then you're like, no.
Okay, so when I was younger, I think I was really great. And I'm talking about my 20s. Like college, when you're college, you're 18, I think 18 to like 27. What I was really great at, I've always been really great at telling the truth and being pretty forward. Like, we could date, but just know you're not going to be the only person that I'm dating. Like I've always been very clear and upfront with that. And I think people have kind of been upset with that and thinking like, you're in a relationship and maybe, I don't know, people call them situationships now, but you're dating somebody and you're having moments and they believe, and you're telling them like, no, I'm dating other people, but they believe that they're going to be the one. Mm-hmm. And so they do things that are like, they're the one, but they're not the one. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, totally.
So they'll get upset like they're the one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we had this conversation. It doesn't mean you can't be the one, but you're not that one right now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, don't bring that energy to me because I told you what it was. Right. So I think when you're asking me about the question of, have I ever crossed wires like that?
Mhm.
I don't think it's ever happened for me in that way, because I think the intentionality is there. But I'm also like, I like the way that the relationships I've had with people, I can't ever recall shady things happening like that. But I do recall shady moments of being like, I'm really vibing with this person and I'm hanging out with this person. But while I'm hanging out with you, I have a phone call from the person I'm really vibing with. And I'm gonna go in the hallway and I'm gonna take this call. Like, I've done some really like that wasn't cool type thing. But you know, when you're young, you're like, you know, this person lives out of town. You are like right down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've done shady things like that before. So
Okay. I've definitely crossed wires.
oh
That's
gosh.
definitely happened. Yeah. But so I think to kind of maybe summarize a little bit, like what he kind of describes as this like living single thing to me reminds me of like a roller coaster where it's exciting as it's happening. It's frantic. It's constant stimulation. You're always looking around. What's that? The next corner, like, you know, but you aren't being productive. It's literally like, this is good for right now, but it's not a productive thing for my life. And in fact, a lot of times when you're caught in this living single life, when you reflect back on it, you're like, damn, I could have been way more productive. I could have accomplished this goal. I could have worked towards getting this thing done. And instead, like, there's all these people who are now just like empty contacts in my phone that I will never reach out to again, and they'll never reach out to me.
Yeah. I even think like what you're saying in this back and forth thing, you know, even in you know, it gets Big Sean gets very almost kind of Nas-ish is what I would call it, is that Nas will be like, you're my queen, and then I'll say the worst shit the next song. Like, bend over and pop this, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the worst lyrical combination of things. It's like, what the fuck, Nas? You know what I mean? Like, I thought we were like, I know I can, but now it's like Uchi Wally Wally. Like, what the hell? Like, I know duality is there, but like the way you say stuff is like, did you really have to say all of that? There's, you know what I mean? Like, ugh. But Big Sean goes, it's not as Nas-ish, right? But like, there's a line. I'm gonna skip what it says. So you're going back and forth between, now I'm on the phone with Lisa, and he's like, you know, fuck it, I got some new hoes. Yes. I mean, some XXX girls, pussy get wet like an S curl. And I think that's the moment when you're like, I'm heartbroken. I'm upset that I wanted to be in these relationships and my heart keeps getting broken. So I think about the times when my heart was broken, and then I'm like, fuck this shit. And I'm going out and now I'm being mad disrespectful. Right? Yeah. Like, fuck it. I don't need to respect nobody. You don't want to love me the way that I need to be loved. We're going to break up. And now to me, you're going to get, everybody else is going to get the me that, you know what I mean? That the me that I should have been an asshole. And so I think like that flip right there in the verse. And then he goes, then I started thinking about my XXX girl. Yeah. So it's like flipping back. So now you're talking about these triple X girls. Yeah. And I love this right here. So I mean some XXX girls. Yeah. And then does that line. But then what I love is that I started thinking about my XXX girl. I love that. Just I don't know what that's called, but
yeah, but he's using the same kind of language around both women, but they're mean totally different things to him in his life.
Right. And how it was, XXX girls, and how it was the worst time, but she was the best girl.
Best girl, yeah.
Yes. You know, good girl, bad time, right place, wrong mind. Got my mind right, hit her back, and the wrong line. Yeah. Of course, Big Sean's sound effect is much better than mine. Yeah, wrong line. And I'm like, yo, so you're switching this back and forth of like, I want to be in this relationship, but my heart keeps getting broken. So now I'm just going to be an asshole. But then I'm thinking about the relationship I could have been in, but it wasn't the right time. So I just hear this back and forth. And it's such a relatable thing for me to be like, damn, I remember this back and forth of like, oh man, I really like this person. Do they really like me? Now they're not fucking with me. They're trying to play me. And then me just being like vengeful and that kind of thing. And this verse gives me that a little bit.
Totally. So I think one thing that hits home very heavy for like the consequence of the living single lifestyle is this whole idea of realizing that you've missed something because you were caught up in the momentum of living single. So you're meeting all these different people, you're interacting with all these different people, and you have this like whole system going on of like, for lack of a better way of putting it, like fuck boy, mentality. And
right.
once you really get on that train, it's impossible to dead stop. And what can happen is you're going through this whole thing. You got all this momentum going on. You inevitably interact with a bunch of people. You are definitely going to find someone who, in the momentum of the situation, you won't notice it immediately. But as the momentum continues, you're like, wait a second, that girl was special. She was the one. And by the time you try to slow your train down to kind of correctly approach that girl again, that situation, that opportunity is long gone, and you will never get it again, because her only moment experiencing with you, she saw it for what it was, and you can't come back from that.
Yeah, no, like there's I can totally relate. There's moments where I'm like, yep,
I fucked that up.
Yep.
And now I slow down my train, my living single train, to try to get off at this stop. But now the stop doesn't exist anymore, and now my train is stopped, and I'm just standing here lonely with nothing.
Yo, the analogy is so heartbreaking. That was so good.
You're just like a train in the middle of nowhere, stopped, and like to get going again is a lot of energy. And you, in that moment, you just literally reflect on yourself. And that's what I mean. Like this living single thing, the life, it's fun, it's exciting. But when the music stops playing, you have to look at your situation and realize you have nothing to show for it.
And this is the example when you're saying nothing to show for it, get it off the train. The next part that Big Sean says is, man, but before I started feeling bad, my nigga texted me like, I got some hoes, hit me back. Fuck it. Right.
That's like your friend that comes like when your train is stopped, he comes like in his own car and picks you up and like, all right, we're gonna go out of here.
Right. It's like, nah, you're not gonna be feeling bad. It's kind of like I was watching Insecure, and Issa, have you ever watched Insecure?
I have, yeah. I've seen most of the first season. I like it. I just didn't see all of it.
Yo, man, it's definitely okay. So I was watching Insecure, and there's one scene where Issa's homies are like, Issa's the main character, and Issa's like, one of the homies is like, yo, we got to get you some birthday dick. And it's like they're going so hard, like forget about all that other stuff, it's your birthday, so that means we got to get you birthday dick. And for me, it's just like that moment of when your homie calls you like, fuck all that, I got this, you know what I mean, I got this happening. And so that version of seeing, when I look at this last part and it's like, then my homie hits me up and I'm like, fuck it, you know what I mean. And then we skip the other verses and we get back to this next story that Big Sean is saying. Now, what I love about the first verse is Big Sean, to me, is painting this picture of like, this is a very single life. All the single things you talk about, being on the train, the stops and stuff like that. It's like, oh man, it's like a headache. I'm on the phone with Lisa and Brittany and all these people, right? Then the next verse, which was so surprising. So when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, okay, I'm listening to this verse, listen to a couple verses. And then this verse comes on, and it's the perspective of, it's kind of like a conversation that Big Sean is having, or a reflection that they're having with one of his homies that's married. And then I'm like, oh, I did not expect this turn. Like I didn't expect it. Now, this tells me in my mind of minds, like the reflection that Big Sean has, or the like introspection that Big Sean has, is like, oh, I'm thinking about all these multiple different things. I'm considering these things. And what I like about this song is it shows the different perspectives. So that means that, to me, I'm looking at Big Sean as someone who has a lot of things going for them, just based off of their writing. I'm seeing they're a very, very colorful person. I don't know if that makes sense. Because, sometimes you can listening to songs and it's literally about the same thing, or like you listen to somebody rap. Like I can listen to people rap a love song, especially if you listen to an MC and they're male and they rap love songs. It just doesn't touch me the same as someone who has like a deeper perspective, right? Because they're not thinking about nuances. To me, my experiences, they're not thinking about nuances. They're always thinking about physicality. They're always thinking about the woman as the object that you do something for, or you do something to, right? Never the person that you do something with, or you have this experience with. And I always, when I think about emceeing and male MCs, when they have anything love song or like anything that has to do with being in relationship, it always gets super graphic in some way where it's just like, my gosh, couldn't it just be some regular ass shit that didn't have to be graphic or like extra showing how you blew somebody's back out or you make the fucking bra strap pop, right? It's like, why does it have to be?
This is someone else's girl, but I'm still the guy doing it.
Yeah, and I'm stealing this girl as if this woman doesn't have a choice. So this is someone else's girl. So it's like, okay, now we're girls. As if a woman doesn't have a choice about what they're doing with their body, their own autonomy. But it's always like, I have the autonomy over this woman or this femme. And so listening to that, and then I listen to this verse, I'm like, oh gosh, it's kind of like a break from that same experience that's so hyperactive in rap, especially when it comes to men doing that. And so that's why hearing like wet ass pussy and stuff like that is this my autonomy over my own body. Like, you have nothing to say about it. I get to say whatever I want to say. I get to do whatever I want to do. And it's not for you. It's because this is how I'm viewing my body, or this is how I want to be in my body. This is my expression of my body and how I want to talk. And I think that those kind of rhymes like Megan Thee Stallion and stuff like that are so appealing to other women and femmes. It's because it's like, whew, I'm so tired of listening to men do to or for us. You know what I mean? Like always doing some stuff to us. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that does. It's the representation of women's bodies throughout the media is from men's perspectives solely, and kind of just as a random object, almost like a toaster. It's just like,
is a reminder of how like there's nuance that exists, but why doesn't it exist in your mind? Like, do you think there shouldn't be nuance? You think there shouldn't be love? It's always just like this physical thing. But what Big Sean does is like, when you get into this verse, want to find something specific here.
Can I tell you the nuance part that I love about the verse?
Yes, absolutely.
So it touches on exactly what you're saying. It's just the part where he says, "My wife down at Whole Foods." So when you talk about like things hitting home in a way that most rappers don't. So in my opinion, as rappers get more famous, they become more like famous politicians. When you ask them like, how much is milk? They're like, I don't fucking know. And their language changes around that, where their language no longer reflects kind of like stuff that normal people are feeling and experiencing. So like, my wife down at Whole Foods, I think out of all the words used to describe women in rap music, wife is probably the least common out of any word that you can consider. I mean, how often do you hear the term wife in a rap song? You may hear wifey, but that ain't the same.
Yo, say the things. I was just about to say, I was like, wifey. I hear wifey.
Yeah, but that ain't the same as wife. Yeah. And I feel like Big Sean is very deliberate by saying wife. Like he's making the distinction. Yeah. Like, nah, having this kind of like Facebook official relationship versus wife, those aren't the same thing. Let's not confuse those. This is a separation. So he says wife, and then he says down at Whole Foods. Like, again, that's a very understandable, like normal person phrase that they would understand.
And so this is also too, what I love about the verse is that it's saying some stuff where it's like, oh man, this is so refreshing to hear. So in the verse, it's like, all right, my friend who's 24 has been married at 24. And Big Sean's like, why would you do that? That means you're going to be with, you're supposed to be with her longer than your ass been alive. Yeah. Right. And then he's like, fuck it. We about to do therapy. This is the friend. We about to do therapy. Hey, at least when I hit the doctor, I'm carefree with no plan Bs. Yeah. You got that. I love that play on words. You probably never got that, got tested and had that type of oh my gosh.
That type of clarity. Yeah.
That type of clarity. Thank you. So he says, yeah, you probably never got tested and had that type of clarity. I'd rather live my life with the lifetime guarantee. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, it's so refreshing those little couple bars right there. Cause it's like therapy. What? When I heard therapy, I was like, Big Sean, what you doing? Why are you talking to my heart like that? What's happening? 24 therapy? It's like, is this a Gen Z thing? Like I started going down the list. I was like, and also is Big Sean is black. So I'm like, black men who identify as straight and like, or like really like identify with with this heteronormative culture, I feel like there's a big struggle for so many different reasons, but really embodying the toxic spaces of masculinity, really embodying those things as if they're going to help them get ahead in some special way. Right. And also like a lot of the male identified people I hang with though are in therapy or like are doing those things. Oh, let me ask you, when you hear this line about therapy, what does that bring up for you?
It's like, again, I don't know if I'm totally answering your question, but this friend is saying, Big Sean is like, why would you get married? Like, you could be living single. Look at me. Like, I'm fucking having the quote unquote time of my life. And then this guy's like, yeah, I know. But like, I'm going to do this and we're going to do therapy, like as a way, like I'm committed to this. I'm going to make this work. And again, you're right. Listening to rap music and hearing the word therapy, much like a lot of the other words that are used in the song, is jarring, is something you don't hear very often. And the word selection in the song absolutely stands out and helps it resonate beyond just the quote unquote goodness of the song.
Right. And then Big Sean goes on to, of course, continue to massage my heart. When you say it's probably more entertaining than me talking about my wife down at Whole Foods, right?
Yeah.
Or how I'm with her and I feel whole too. Go ahead, keep living that life you niggas too old to.
Yeah.
Fuck it, I started laughing. Okay, so let's stop right there, right? It's like, yo, I'm just giving you bars. Like, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm in, I'm about to start therapy. I'm building this life. And again, I can't say this enough for Black men, is because it's like there's so many Black men that I've been around where it's just like, yo, if you went and saw a therapist, you'd be able to figure that shit out. And there was one therapist that said to me, like, yo, every Black person needs to go to therapy because we're literally living it. We're walking traumas. Like, to live, to exist is trauma, and everybody needs to go to therapy. And I was like, damn, I never thought about it like that. Like, literally existing and being dark. And so when I think about like being in the male body and the certain things that I hear, another one of my mentors who does this whole thing about masculinity and like having this thing, like one of the exercises he does is like, you've got to stand there. Imagine flexing, when you flex on somebody, you try to scare them, like, oh, yeah, and you like contract your muscles a little bit and you make this face, like this grimace or whatever, when you try, you know what I mean by that? Like when you're a kid, or like some people do that all the time. And one moment they do in this exercise is hold that pose, hold that tension. And they make you hold it for like 30 seconds to a minute. And they say, now release it. And that's what it's like to walk around in the world as male. Mm. You're constantly holding that tension. And that for me painted this picture of like, damn, there's this constant tension that you're holding and you don't know how to release it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, is that relatable to you?
Yeah, totally. I think there's a lot of, everyone talks about like struggles, and there's been obviously in America, especially, there's like this whole big conversation about a lot of that stuff. And one of the worst things that men do is we harbor this need to be like you're saying, macho. And I don't care whether someone appears like they're trying to embrace that image or they're not trying to embrace it. Like, I think if you grow up in America, like there's a part of you that feels like that's a necessary thing to kind of constantly have at your disposal. And it's not healthy. And I don't think it's a good thing for men. But what that guy said, that makes sense.
Okay, here's another.
I don't know if it was
question.
a guy or who said that to you, but that exercise sounds pretty accurate, where there's like this pressure for you to be like macho, to portray this macho image.
Yeah. Another question for you. Mm-hmm. Out of your friend group, like I'm assuming you have male friends.
Yes.
Any of them go to therapy, including you?
One of them does. Not many. Not many that outwardly talk about it, at least. And I do think that's the case, that most of them don't.
And do you feel like, or do you experience y'all having conversation about what's happening in your life?
We do. So it gets deep sometimes, but it gets deeper with the friends of mine who I do know have therapy. They're much more willing to talk about stuff that's actually affecting them, impacting them, and kind of like work through those things with me, or just use me as a sounding board. Yeah, I don't have the whole answer here, but I think there's a lot of therapy that's needed that men don't seek out.
Last question.
Yeah.
What is that like for you? That experience, the contrast of talking to a friend who hasn't had therapy, talking to a friend who has had therapy. What's that experience like?
It's very refreshing when you talk to somebody who's more open and outward with their feelings. This in America, like you're always driven to be successful, strong. And that is an exhausting posture to hold up. Mm-hmm. So the ability to talk with somebody where there isn't even kind of a subconscious thing to portray that is very refreshing. And it feels very connective. Like you really feel like you're genuinely connecting with this person in a way that kind of helps like recharge you, reflect, and you feel like there's it makes you feel like you're actually really there for each other.
I'm just pausing for a moment because I'm like, damn, sinking into being there for your friend, like y'all being there for each other.
So we're gonna go like really deep and dark. There's like this thing that's been happening on the internet recently that is tough to watch, and there because now you have like Facebook Live, all these different like live video things that you can show, and there's some really fucked up things where you see these men who have snapped, and they've gone to their like baby mother house or their ex-wife's house, and the kid is there, and it's as bad as you can imagine. But one thing that is constant, in at least the videos that I've seen, it's very heartbreaking. Now, again, you can't forgive what these guys are doing in these moments, but they're talking about this thing where it's like, you can't push people. Everyone has a breaking point. And the guys that you're watching kind of come across very much like these genuine guys who just had a job and a wife or an ex-wife and a kid, and they're trying to do all these things. But I'm guessing, and then again, I'm guessing that they were carrying this whole thing, and it's exhausting, and it will break you if you just try to carry it forever. And of course, these scenarios played out in the worst way you can imagine. And I wish that those guys had gotten therapy long before they had reached that point. And I think the whole community around them probably wished that too.
Yeah. So listening to Big Sean.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And I'm like, that's what a rap song is about. Because, when you think about rap, it's, the story we think about the elements of rap, of hip hop in general, is knowledge of self and knowledge of community. It's one of the elements is knowledge, understanding yourself, understanding your community. And when I listen to this song, I'm like, damn, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect all of this to happen. But it's like, even us having this conversation is recognizing people's humanity. So even when you're saying this person is just holding the weight of the world in ways that like everybody's holding something in ways that we don't recognize or realize. In that release, unfortunately, plays out in a very machismo, toxic, masculine type way, because now you've only been taught to react with anger or react with violence through your expression or through your experience of being male. So this reaction is like, of course, this reaction is going to happen. Instead of saying like, this is really hurting my feelings, to be able to receive that. I've even like had this experience where men have expressed that doesn't feel good for me. And then the women turn around and be like, oh, you a bitch. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, so how this conundrum of us playing out these pieces, like femmes and women playing out these stereotypes that these males or male identified people should be living in, and how it's become cyclical. So it's like, oh man, this thing is repeating itself. But when I listened to this Big Sean verse or this song, it was definitely a turning point for me. And I was like, damn, Big Sean, I could respect you. And you could see it's just 3 or 4 words that we mentioned that was the difference, And I remember reading an article on Big Sean. I don't know if it was for some song that they were doing or whatever. And Big Sean was like, when I do the verse, I think somebody was asking, how do you approach your verses? And Big Sean was saying something like, I'll sit and I pray before the verse and I get quiet. And, you know, I'll just sit for a little bit and I'll let the words come to me. And I think somebody was kind of reflecting on their experience of being in the room with Big Sean and how they were from the outside looking in. They saw this person just sitting very quietly for a very long time. And then all of a sudden was like, okay, I got it. But letting that energy come to you. And I get this experience that Big Sean, like in some of the other spaces, talks about meditation, talks about taking those moments for himself in that development. And so you can see how it's reflected, even when we think about these lyrics, how Big Sean is maybe going through their own process.
Yeah.
Just to be able to mention these things of like, I'm reflecting on these things now. So I've come from this place to what's that? I don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I've come from here all the way to this living single place. And I don't know how far distance that was or whatever, but you know, those moments. So I just think it's really great when we talked about Bronx drill, being able to see people grow up.
Yeah.
Like what it would be like to see these people grow up. I mean, as far as Nas growing up, there's still that shit. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, which makes me listen to Nas way less. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I've listened to Nas in a very long time because of that. But it's just like, I can't, it's too much, you know, too much going on for me here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this song for me is definitely, it was my introduction. I think it was the other introduction I had to Big Sean was The Control. And I don't think that was a real introduction because it was more about Kendrick Lamar's verse.
Kendrick Lamar was like, everyone else was prize on that song. It was like, Kendrick Lamar.
Everyone else was prize.
Stand to the side real quick.
Right. So but then having this introduction and be like, oh snap, I'm gonna go listen to a couple more Big Sean songs after this. So that's what it did for me.
Yeah, he's very thoughtful. I think he's a much more thoughtful artist than people necessarily immediately notice when they listen to him, because he does have a lot of like popular big songs. But even in those songs, you'll hear this moment where he shows, hey, I'm also very thoughtful. And here's this extra thing just for you.
I mean, and even structurally, you know, when you're looking at the verses, like lyrically, we talked a little bit about those things or whatever. But, you know, there's some ins and outs of your AA, your ABA, your AABB, your ABAB, your like some standardized formats, you know, there's some internal rhymes in there. A lot of internal rhymes in there. That I'm trying to think of one that they have off bat. I should have took a note of it, but I was like, oh, that's a nice internal rhyme. But you know, there's some moments in there where you're catching lyrically some things while they're telling the story. And I think that's also too like a lyricist who is, you know, a little bit more seasoned is able to tell this really great story, have this really great sound, landing, making sure they're in the pocket, as most of the people we're talking about do a really good job of. And that's what makes it, you know. Yeah,
he's technically a good rapper. Like there's the content side, but then there's like the technical side of like, I'm going to make sure this is actually good technical rap. An MC would like this also.
Right. And I think what also about Big Sean, we're talking about technically as a good rapper and like sonically and these formats, et cetera, what I also appreciate is that it's not super heavy lyrical. It's you get into a flow of it. It's not very dense.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is right off the bat. You know it right after each line. You know exactly what they're saying. And there's a couple things you can go back, like, you know, XXX girl and my XXX girl, you know, so there's moments like that where it's just like, oh yeah, I love that. Right. And it's not too much. So you can really groove to the song. We're talking about in the car, riding out to it. Yeah. This is one of those songs where you're like, oh, I totally got that. And I could listen to it again and see what's happening here. What's that, a double entendre? Is that what they call it?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the proper authority on this topic, but that sounds right.
Right.
Can I go back to something really quick? Talking about like male identity and how men process relationships and all this stuff. So again, I like the song. I went on a deep dive in the YouTube comments. And if you scroll way down in the YouTube comments, there's this guy and he has this gigantic paragraph. I'm like, oh shit, this motherfucker really goes off.
Oh no.
And then he starts off by like, I'm sure no one will read this, but I need to get something off my chest. And talks about he's about to graduate tomorrow. And him and his girlfriend had been dating for a long time, and he feels like he had been taking her for granted. And then just the day before, they're going to like different colleges, I guess. Yeah. And she's like, hey, I don't think this is going to work once we go to different colleges. We should have a talk together on the day that we graduate. So he's writing this comment on the eve before this. And he's saying like, I'm shaking. I can't go to sleep. And he's like, all this thing is crashing down around him. And he's literally just venting. And it's a long paragraph. There's no grammar. It's just fucking a train of thought. And he does this thing. And basically, it's exactly what you think. He's getting ready for the breakup that he now realizes he wish he didn't have. And that's why the part of the Big Sean song that hits him is the idea that he's not going to experience this thing where he's married and like the Big Sean's friend. The reality that is now going away from it. He's heartbroken. He's devastated. You fucking feel terrible reading this thing. And so there's this big long comment. And again, he writes it like, no one's going to read this because this is buried in the comments. After that, all these people chime in and they're like, oh man, don't take it so bad. We're here for you. There's all these things. I've been there too. And it goes on and on and on. And at first he's kind of responding back to him. There's like a conversation going. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to watch a bunch of YouTube videos till I fall asleep. And then hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. And then he stops. So his input in the comment chain is gone. But then there are all these people who, as years pass, because this comment is maybe 5 years ago. As years pass, people are like, hey, man, whatever happened to her? Like, what happened? Da, da, da. And he's not responding. He's done. So like part of me reading is like, maybe he jumped off the roof. Like, what the fuck happened? And then
wow, Liam, that was far.
But no, like that literally crossed my mind, because I think anyone who's been, especially young and in serious heartbreak, like that shit is devastating. And all this is going on for years. And there's like there's people commenting in like Portuguese and French and like sending love from France. But he's no response. It's fucking crickets. And then finally, like after 4 years, he finally chimes back in. And he's like, oh my God, my phone, I didn't have any notifications for this. I totally forgot about this comment. And meanwhile, the comment blew the fuck up. Oh, wow. And then he chimes back in, and it's this dope thing where it's like, you get this flash forward 4 years. What really happened? And he's like, yeah, we broke up. I don't talk to her anymore. It was devastating for me. But after time, I healed. I had to do some self-reflection. I stopped smoke, whatever. Like I stopped using drugs. And now I'm in a much better place. I, recently did this thing. And it's like this amazing thing of like, in this brief comment section, you can see what this guy went through. And you can see the other side of these heartbreaking breakups that if you give it time, you're really going to be okay. And then it was amazing to see all these other people from around the world chime in and like, I've been there too, or I'm going through this right now. I don't know what to do. I'm waiting for your response. And then it's like
4 years later.
So it's amazing. I mean, it's a whole fucking,
where's this comment section at?
So if you go to the Living Single YouTube thing, like the official Big Sean version, and it's like 4 years ago. The name of the person who generated this whole thing is a guy named Colorblind. That's his like YouTube, handle. And if you scroll down and see Colorblind, it's like his comments from like 4 or 5 years ago. And it'll take you on a whole journey down a whole path of male psychology with breakups and like how we look tough, but we're not tough, and it fucking devastates us.
Yo, before the most fantastical moment, I want to ask you, has that ever happened to you? A moment where you had a breakup and you're like, this is the worst thing. Like my heart is on the floor. And then years later, so for instance, I remember I was in high school, I had this devastating breakup. I was so dramatic over it, and then I think I'm a sophomore in college. This must have been like a junior year of high school or whatever. And then I'm a sophomore in college, and I get a call from this person who broke up with me. Now that they cheated on me, so it was like really a big deal for me. Like, no, why, And I get a call, and I'm about to go to some college party, and I'm just like, I'm definitely nice or whatever. And I get this random phone call on my cell phone, and they're like, I just wanted to call to say I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry for the way that I treated you. And in that moment, I was like, okay, like I guess I'll talk to you never, and like I'm going to this party. I'm like, I'm chilling with like my homies, and I'm like, that was random as fuck. And I go to this party, I'm like, getting lit and all the things with everybody, and so it was just this moment, like, here's this devastating thing that happened to me 3 years ago where I was completely heartbroken over it. And now I get this phone call, because I remember thinking to myself, like, why couldn't you have apologized? Like, Why couldn't you just say why couldn't there be some closure?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I get this phone call, which is AKA like the closure.
Yeah.
And my mind is nowhere to be found. Like I'm just in a whole nother place. But I thought to myself, like after that, I thought to myself, this person must have been thinking about it for a very long time.
Yep.
Like you must have been thinking about it for so long. You must have felt some sort of guilt for so long. And I just went on to New York to just be having the time of my life up in college. And then get the phone calls like, oh, damn, you must have been really thinking about that. But I ain't thinking about that shit today. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but has any of that ever happened to you before?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the like most like heartbreaking breakups for me haven't necessarily been like me like ruining it the same way. There's a lot of like what Big Sean says, where like you realize after the moment passes that this person could have been a potential thing that really developed into something. But I've definitely been devastated by breakups. And it hangs with you. And I think that for men, you're not supposed to like publicly talk about that. And I think it makes it so it actually men probably hold this stuff longer and they don't healthily process it. And that's why like you'll get a call. And I'm sure a lot of, and we're talking about gender here. I know it can be femme, masculine, the whole thing, but like you'll get a call randomly years later where it's fallen off your radar. But because this person never allowed themselves to really process the whole emotional aspect of what happened to them, they're sitting on it for all these years and it's eating away at them. And then they have to try to close the loop for their own well-being.
Wow. You know, I'm thinking of a moment for you. I remember a phone call I got from you.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on blast.
No, yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it like that. But
no, but remember, I'm an open book.
You want me to say the thing?
Yeah, you can say anything you want.
This is when Liam and I lived together, and we were roommates. And you know, I never told you the story before, and I was like, I really appreciate that. So Liam was dating this woman, and one day we were going to the movies, which is a whole nother story. But we were going to the movies one day, and I was like, oh, I forgot my wallet or whatever. Like I was walking out of the door. And I was talking to her and I was like, oh shit, I forgot my wallet. And then she says to me, it's all good. Just make Liam pay. And I remember from that day, I was like, I don't like this motherfucker. I never liked her after that. And I think you might've been dating for like 2 years, something like that.
Wow. I didn't know.
But I don't think I ever told you.
No. Yeah.
But then one night you called me and you're like, I'm laying on the airport floor. And I just found out my girlfriend cheated on me, and y'all were in like Florida together or something, Miami. On vacation together. Like,
big Miami moment.
Oh my gosh. You know, I don't know the details of it, but I was just thinking to myself, like my heart sunk when you called me and you're like, I'm just on the floor. I'm like, yo, you're on the airport floor. Like when I was just thinking about the vision of you being on the floor.
Oh, it was pathetic. Up. Yeah. It was like looking so up pathetic.
I mean, what was You tell me.
I look like a fucking mess. Like, you know, I don't know how to describe me, but there's some sort of like creature animal, like a wombat. I don't know what it is, but I just look like a lost cause. I'm like a homeless person on the floor. But what I do feel, those things, I think anytime you have a really devastating breakup, heart is broken into a million pieces, like that stays with you forever in some regard. But in that one, what is different than like the Big Sean one is like, I didn't feel like I did wrong in the situation. Yeah. You know, and I think that what you're talking about, the happened to you, that person did wrong. And that's much harder to get over from a perspective of like, not only did this break my heart because I ruined something that was important to me, but like I ruined it and I fucking hurt that person. So like there's a slight difference between what I experienced and what Big Sean is talking about in this song. But yeah.
Me and my spouse talk about this all the time. Yeah. And your past relationships, when you reflect to right now, are you the one that got away for a lot of people? Or were you often, or was it often reverse?
So, okay, great point. Here's where I also like about this Big Sean song. I think one thing he hits that I feel is very real for a lot of people is you can meet the right person at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of moments where you might feel like you met the right person and both of your lives are different. And I don't even mean like one person's ready to get married, the other person wants to be the living single, but just literally like job, career, position in life, all that stuff can just not line up. And I can't tell you that someone has come back. Oh, I did have that happen once. Yes.
Ooh, was it the Miami and
No, I don't think it's who you think
Kevin
it is.
Hart ticket?
Yeah,
No,
I
okay.
don't think those is but yeah, and
Well,
that
hold on.
was
Let me just say
yeah.
the Miami breakup. You had Kevin Hart tickets.
I had Kevin Hart
Kevin
tickets.
Hart
Yes.
tickets, and I remember you trying to sell them to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to buy them off of you, but the way my bank account works right now.
Yeah. I have to move the money from here to there. Yeah.
But I was like, damn, I was so even extra upset. Like, ooh, you know, you want to get violent. Like, that's my boy. So
I was so excited for Kevin Hart tickets, and I couldn't go because like imagine like the trauma I would have felt like being at this concert alone.
Like I would have, like I probably could have bought one ticket, but it's like you want to go, and I was like,
I was done. Yeah.
Okay, what were you saying?
Fuck, I totally.
It wasn't the person. It wasn't the person you thought it was.
But someone that I pursued heavily that kind of like, you know, did this thing where I think they were doing their living single, right? And I was like the train stop that they should have got off at. They then years later came back and did this whole like, you know, plea to like join our lives together. And you know, it was the opposite for me in that moment. I was like, nah, I remember back then, and like I would have totally said yes to whatever you said you wanted to do. But you know, and now things are different and that's all good. But you know, we will not be continuing forward. Fuck
that shit. My boy called me and said, what these hoes do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was, when I say the one who got away, I was having this conversation with my wife because I believe that my spouse is the one that got away for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying to my spouse, I believe that I'm the one that got away for a lot of people too. In the sense that I've gotten a lot of phone calls where people are like, I've gotten cheated on a lot. Like, I don't know what that says about me, but you know, my pick meter, you know, as much as I've had romantic entanglements and situationships, a lot of people have just been like super dishonest. And I'm just like, whatever. Okay. But that could, you know, say whatever. But I've gotten phone calls where people are like, I'm madly, deeply in love with you and I want to be with you. And I'm like, what the fuck? This, like, we were together like 6 years ago. Like, why are you calling me right now expressing your love for me? Right. But I think when people are looking on Facebook and they're searching back, there's a lot of people saying, I wonder where DW is right now.
Yeah. What would have happened?
What would have happened, you know? So I agree. Okay. So most fantastical moment from this.
Okay. Let me stop you. First of all, I asked my dad, does he know who Big Sean is? Do you think my dad knows who Big Sean is?
What kind of TV does your dad watch?
I don't even know. My dad watches like everything. He's you know, I don't know. I don't feel like I can be helpful with that one.
Not a show or two that you're like, oh, my dad's mentioned this show before.
See, he doesn't even watch something like Breaking Bad. My dad goes in like weird tangents. Like he definitely watches stuff. He watched Game of Thrones. You know, he watches popular stuff, but
okay. Does your dad know Big Sean? How poppin' is Big Sean? Watches Game of Thrones.
I like you're connecting the dots. It's like,
no, but that's a clue. It's a popular show. You know, when Big Sean was popping, was Game of Thrones popping then? They might have crossed paths. I'm connecting the dots. But I'm going to go with no.
I'm going to play the feedback from my dad.
Do you know who the artist named Big Sean is? I don't think I do know.
Yes, 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
DW is 2 for 2. I'm telling you, I know your dad, even though I don't know your dad.
Yeah,
that's 2 for 2. I'm so amped. I feel like I deserve like a golden ticket, some golden ticket or some shit. All right, fantastical moment
for me. It's the when he's doing it back and forth with his friend who chose to get married. There's this moment where he emulates what his friend is saying. So it's like, but I'm down to hear about what your hoes do. And it's this very like condescending, like kind of like backhanded way to say like, okay, tell me about all this shit that I'm missing out on. And he does a great way of doing it where like, it does sound genuine. Like he does actually kind of want to hear whatever crazy stories are coming out of Big Sean's living single life. But at the same time, it's like this backhanded thing. Like that shit is shallow. I got a whole fucking life going on here. Like we building a home and like, all you did is something in a hotel room last night. So that's my favorite moment in the song.
Most fantastical moment for me. I'm surprised now that I'm looking at the song because I was so heavy about the second verse. But now the first verse, like I love the second verse, but the comedic moment for me, when Big Sean has that moment of like my mom, I told my mom many times, so many times I'm sounding dumb.
Yeah.
Because she's starting to mix Ashley up with Tanisha, saying, "Hi, Brittany," when I'm on the phone with Lisa. That to me, the way that line lands is it's a hysterical line for me. And I just love the way that's planted in the song. And it gives you a real feel of this is that single life. So for me, that's definitely the most fantastic moment. So, and for the people, what's a singular most fantastical moment that you, or song that you love that you want to share with us? But also, wait, where can people find and listen to this song? You can go to YouTube, right? Because there was an album I found this attached to because I think the drop,
the leaking, yeah,
because the leak happened, and I don't know if it actually went on an album. But you can find the single on Big Sean's page on YouTube. You can also find it, I believe, on all streaming services.
Yeah, and we'll put a link for the YouTube on our show description.
Right. And so we also want to offer y'all space to share your perspectives with us. How did you experience this moment in music? What was happening in your life? And also, do you have any juicy stories to tell us? Like, was there any juicy stories attached to music? Maybe like, what is it, Colorblind?
Yeah, Colorblind had a real juicy story.
Colorblind had a real juicy story.
If you have I'm glad you overcame that Colorblind.
Yes, 4 years later, right? If you have a juicy story to tell, hit us up at whatsperfectreallypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also share your stories with us or tag us to one of your stories on Instagram at whatsperfectreallypodcast. And we invite you to take what you want from this podcast and leave what you don't. Because remember, y'all, ain't nobody perfect.
Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. 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 Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.